elements of savvy theory to show how it brings together everything you've learned in the previous chapters. Before continuing, please visit www.conversationtransformation.com/grid, where you can download the Savvy Grid that will be used throughout the book, and www.conversationtransformation.com/bwgrid to download the black and white grid for reference in Chapter 9. Chapter 1. Can this conversation be saved? Communication breakdowns are bad news for our lives and work. At best, they're a source of irritation and frustration. At worst, they can threaten our jobs, families, and friendships, and in some cases, even our health. Research suggests that failed communication is one of the leading causes of preventable medical errors. The surprising common factor in all communication breakdowns. How can we go about improving our conversations? First, we need to get clear about exactly what's going wrong. We can't solve a problem if we don't know what's causing it. However, when it comes to communication problems, the cause is often tricky to spot. Consider the following conversation between a physician, Dr. M, and his patient's daughter, Sarah. As you read it, see if you can figure out what's causing the trouble between them. Sarah began by saying, "It's so upsetting to see my father in this condition. I know this is not how he'd want to spend the last days of his life." "I'm very sorry," replied Dr. M, emotionless. "I think it's finally time to take him off the respirator." "I can see how you'd feel that way now," said Dr. M, "but this new medication may start to improve his quality of life." "At this point, that's just not enough. He's never going to get to the point where life is worth living again." "Wouldn't it be better to wait and be certain? I'm sure you want to explore all the options." "We've waited so long already," said Sarah, whining now, "and nothing has helped." Still very calm, Dr. M replied, "The morphine has helped to make him more comfortable, and his breathing seems a little easier today." "Look," said Sarah, exasperated, "I just can't talk to you about this anymore." What's going on here? What made that conversation so difficult? When we present this dialogue in our training sessions, people usually come up with two different types of explanations: blaming the people and blaming the issue. In fact, these are the most common reasons people give for any type of communication failure. Unfortunately, neither explanation is particularly useful. Explanation 1. Blaming the people. If you blamed the problem on Dr. M or on Sarah, you're using the people explanation. From this point of view, communications fail because of psychological factors such as attitudes, emotions, intentions, motivations, or personality traits. In the hospital case, we might decide there's something wrong with Dr. M. He's cold and insensitive and doesn't care about Sarah's concerns. With Sarah, she's too emotional or too pessimistic. Or with both of them, they're both too rigid and set in their views. The psychological perspective has a strong intuitive appeal. It may seem like common sense. Of course, people's bad attitudes, hidden agendas, and raging emotions ruin conversations. You can probably think of a few examples off the top of your head. However, this type of thinking also leaves us in a bind, with no good way to solve our problems. Suppose you decide that the real trouble with your communication is someone else's defensiveness or over-emotional reaction. That's not something you have the power to control. In fact, if you try to control it and force the person to change, you're likely to make things worse. If you don't believe us, ask anybody who's tried to resolve an argument by saying things like, "Stop being so defensive, calm down," or "You need to relax." Imagine what would have happened if Dr. M told Sarah to be more rational, or if she told him to show some feeling. Moreover, even if it were possible to make someone change, perhaps by convincing them to get coaching or go into therapy, that's a long-term process. It's not an efficient strategy for making your conversations work better right now. Sometimes it may seem as though the only solution is to get the difficult person out of your life, quit your job, fire your employee, seek a divorce, and so on. Even if you haven't gone through this type of thought process yourself, you likely know people who have. You probably know more than one person who's acted on that reasoning, only to end up having the very same conflicts a few months later in their new job or new relationship. And of course, it's often not possible to exclude someone from your life. In our example, so long as Dr. M is caring for Sarah's father, they have no choice but to talk to one another.